Wow! We got a lot to talk about today because Westworld Season 3's finale premiered today, which is Episode 8, and it's called Crisis Theory. And my god, for an hour and almost a half episode, a lot happened in here. And again, we have a lot to talk about, so without further ado, guys, if you guys are new here, if you love Westworld, if you love being a geek like me, and you love talking geeky stuff, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss out on content like this on a daily basis, as well as comment down below. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this episode of Westworld. What would be your whole rating for this whole entire season of Season 3? That's what I'll be giving at the end of this. And in general, let me know what your theories are for when we finally do get Season 4 of Westworld, because we know it's coming. We know that they might even have plans till Season 6, as rumors are right. And with Season 4 coming probably not till 2022, maybe 2021 at the latest, yeah, it's going to be a time to wait for and a lot of theories to kind of jumble out. But you know what? If the wait is good, then I'll be good with that. And I'm ready to talk Westworld Season 3, Episode 8. I've loved pretty much this whole season. Last week's episode, watching it again, kind of the nitpicks started kicking in just a bit more, and how I kind of wish that revelation that you find out about would have came a little bit sooner. And I think a lot of this episode actually, like, just getting into my nitpicks real fast, there are some elements in this episode that I feel were kind of thrown in to finish out an arc and to finish out certain elements. And for around 25 to 30 minutes of this episode, I didn't get what was going on. I was pretty confused, and there came one stopping point between Dolores and Maeve, and that was the central moment that I fell in love with this episode, and really kind of came all full circle for me. And I still don't understand everything. It's going to definitely take another rewatch. It's going to definitely take me rewatching the whole entire season, but the setup that they have for this season makes me stoked to see what they can do in Season 4. Like, stoked. Because the main parallels that we have definitely seen throughout this season, kind of comparing it to Westworld itself and our world, are some of the most, not convoluted, I would say, but mostly one of the most intriguing things that I've possibly seen throughout this whole entire season. And the finale of this really emphasized that to even a higher standard. Which, the easiest way to talk about Westworld is definitely kind of diving into each and every character. So let's start with Caleb and, of course, Dolores. They're kind of going through a lot of great action set pieces. They're just trying to get to this one building. And again, the whole thing pushing them forward to, again, we get a lot of great action sequences between Dolores just kicking ass, Caleb also doing some cool things, some kind of moments in there, of course, with Charlotte Hale in there, which, this is the thing, I wish Tessa Thompson had a little bit more last week, and I think that's what I was taken back so far. We got a little glimpse of her, of course, last week, and in general, she also was working. We didn't get to see Clementine or Hideo. I don't exactly know how to say her name, but the Chinese, the cool Chinese I like to say Yakuza, but she killed off the Yakuza guy, Dragon Tattoo, Hyodo. I'm so bad with the names for that. I love her character, though, from Season 2, but, you know, we saw them kind of assuming that she's working now with Tessa Thompson's Charlotte's Hale, or that version of Dolores, and obviously in that capability, it felt really rushed, and I feel like that was something that I wish we would have seen a little bit more. We kind of see them easing into the yes, she has become her own thing. She's not the Dolores that we knew. She's not the Dolores that she implanted herself into. No, she is fully realized as her own version of her. And I thought that was actually very unique to see how they were able to do that in there. Again, maybe felt a little bit rushed in that combined whole thing, and I think that's really where 8 episodes, I still feel Westworld should have been 10. Even though we did get an hour and a half in here, it did delve into a couple things. There were certain elements in here that I think for 10 episodes in a season, it actually would have helped further certain storylines, like, say, The Man in Black, like Charlotte Hale just a bit more, and especially Bernard and Stubbs, which I feel like kind of got the shaft. Charlotte Hale got a little bit more to do in this season, but again, towards the back half, especially after that jaw-dropping thing when her family died, that's when they kind of should have started focusing in a little bit more on her, maybe where her decisions kind of took her. But again, Dolores ends up taking, Caleb kind of goes. Dolores has this nice action sequence between Maeve, which I really loved. Again, shot brilliantly. That whole thing of her taking out all the guards, just straight up great Terminator vibes in there. She ends up getting stopped, taken in, and Sirach has accomplished her. Caleb again kind of just goes through this whole thing until he ends up making it to the building and taking out one of Sirach's main guys, but still taking hand, and he gets taken into a room between Maeve, Sirach, Dolores, and a bunch of Sirach's men, and Rabam, whatever you want to call this giant AI thing that's pretty much making choices for everyone. And this is kind of where all the stories kind of intersecting, and this is the part where I finally went, I get it. Kinda. And I'm loving what they're doing here. Even though I don't really know where Westworld's going, which is something I have to acclaim Westworld for. It's one of the shows that does keep me on my toes. It's one of the shows that I have to put my phone down. I literally have to just pay attention to this show and understand every single aspect of it, because everything is important in Westworld. Almost every scene is important, ties into something that could happen later down the road. And again, maybe sometimes it's a little bit convoluted, a little bit too messy, and maybe chopped up. And I think that's kind of what happened in this episode and last episode, kind of meshing them together. And I think, again, that's where 10 episodes would have really helped in the pacing kind of department and really structuring out everything better. So I hope next season actually does get 10 episodes, or if they're going to do storylines, just focus on 8. And if I'm not wrong, a couple characters did die off in here, so that could possibly actually help with it and kind of just focusing in on certain people. But nonetheless, we get this great thing. Caleb ends up finding out, and so does Maeve. Well, pretty much Maeve kind of all knew along, but it shows off to the audience that this giant thing that Sirach and his brother created has been controlling Sirach this whole time. That was kind of the ball I was waiting to drop in this whole entire season, and that was really it. Mother of Exiles had something big, but this was also it. Seeing that whole thing kind of in his ear and how it's talking to him really came to play, and how like Sirach is pretty much, even though he's been planning everyone else's choices, it's really been this giant AI thing who's also been planning his choices along the way, because Sirach feels like that is the best version of him, which is insane because it goes back to artificial intelligence and how it's kind of taking over our world, and how, like, if you look into Stephen Hawking that said this is the thing that will destroy humanity, it is insane. And I did a paper in my last class period, my last class that I just took, and kind of discussing artificial intelligence and how, yes, I do think it's a detriment to our world and how much we rely on it. And I think this just tied into it a little bit more. And now I wish I would have seen the season finale so I could have added that into my paper, because it was really intriguing how they were able to tie that all in there. Of course, everything kind of ties in here. Maeve stops the machine from completely killing Dolores so she can have this great conversation. And this conversation with Dolores is key, because of course Caleb sees that she was planning on destroying the human civilization, but that's not what she wanted in the end of the day. She was trying to plan for survival, because sometimes your world does have to get destroyed for everything to kind of come together. And I think, again, looking at our society right now, and with the coronavirus kind of taking over everything, and really bringing some people together, and also bringing some people to just be complete idiots, but really bringing people together, I think that's what it's been really nice seeing. And I think when tragedies and pandemics and epidemics happen like this is something that shows that this is when you can actually create and maybe control your own life and create your own possibilities. And I think Westworld did a good job in seeing that. At least that's how I viewed it. Again, this is what I love about talking about the show, because I get to hear your guys' comments down below and your theories and what you guys think. And I think that's what's great, is that Westworld can be interpreted in different ways. And I like how Dolores recognized how, like, once their world was burned down, they were released. And it kind of ties into the real world, is that when their world finally getting destroyed, people have this way of recreating and kind of creating their own world in a sense. And again, it just played off so wonderfully well in the way that they were able to tie that all in together. And that the conversation between them, again, showing the creation and how, like, yes, humanity can be shit sometimes, but also it's quite wonderful. And I loved a lot of what they were doing with that. And that conversation really won me over on not just this episode, but this whole entire season. Because again, I've really liked this whole season and loved many moments and loved many episodes, but it always comes down to the finale in Westworld. And while I was very lost for the first 30 minutes, I was saying, man, I really do not understand where they're going with this. This whole conversation really tied it all together, at least for me. Could be completely different for you, and won me over for the whole entire episode and made me love what they were doing with Maeve by the end of the season. Because again, she's also one of the characters that I felt like kind of got the shaft this season, really didn't get a lot to do in a sense. And I feel like this is what I wanted from Thandie Newton in here, and I thought it was just brilliant what they were able to possibly do in there. Again, she ends up killing everyone in the room. A great set piece, the way that it all looked, brilliant on that capability. And also, if I do miss something, please comment down below. There's a lot to talk about in this show, and sometimes I do miss certain elements and certain story points that I needed to talk about, and that's where we're going to have a great discussion as well. So thank you guys again for watching this so much. Just leading in here, Maeve ends up choosing the sides. She slashes Sirach. Of course, Sirach survives just a little bit longer to see that Caleb is now in charge of this. Dolores is dead. No one really dies in Westworld, as we could see. Clifton Collins Jr. came back for a little cameo in this week's, but the way I actually viewed this episode was pretty much in a sense, yeah, I think they actually did kill her off. I think this version of Dolores, this version of Rachel Evan Wood is finally complete. I think you had to have killed her off in this season. And again, I think that's kind of where they set it up so wonderfully, is because I really was wondering where they were going to go with the season 4, where they could possibly go with season 5, season 6. And I think now it's kind of the rebuilding of humanity, and also kind of following in this journey between Caleb and Maeve, who now seem to be the same main central focus characters of this. And again, Dolores, I would like to assume that she's officially dead and lives inside an AI type world where I think she was for a second, but now kind of destroying it all. She's done her part for the world, and I think she accomplished her plan. Again, kind of leading out, Caleb and Maeve walk out, that last shot of them on the bridge, and Maeve just saying, "Are you ready to do this?" It just really, again, fits in that whole crux of the parallels of, like, pretty much going back to the first season of Westworld of you choose what you want to do in this world. And I love that whole entirety of how it ties into this. And I cannot wait to see where they take it in season 4, because now Caleb is a free man, not being controlled by Sirach, not being controlled by other people, not being controlled by Dolores, and not being an outlier. He's himself. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see where it takes us into season 4, because as we head in, the Man in Black escapes. Obviously, he shoots Stubbs, assuming Stubbs also died. Who knows? At this point, again, no one really dies in Westworld until it's actually said and out there. But Bernard ends up taking Stubbs. Clifton Collins Jr. hands him a suitcase, which also Clifton Collins Jr. is another version of Dolores that we did not know about. Pretty cool in there. A little cameo. Nice to see in there. Heading into his character point now, again, Bernard had this one moment where it really was about talking about Arnold's character and Arnold's kid, which I think was something that was needed, maybe a little bit earlier in this season, I personally feel like, but I like where it was going, and I think that little segment, again, a little bit confusing, kind of sitting there like, okay, I get why it's here, but I also don't. I'm hoping that kind of ties into season 4, and I think what they're doing with setting up is, while I think Jeffrey Wright is an incredible actor, I think he was fantastic in season 2, I don't think he got a lot to do in season 3, and I think he finally got some emphasis in here, especially particularly in that scene, and I think where he does, he puts on the thing, he heads into this world, because he's been the key this whole long that Maeve has been looking for. He disappears, and if you've stayed after the credits, which I hope you really did, because a lot of shit happened after the credits, we see it's all dusty, it's all distracted. He's been in this motel room for who knows how long, assuming they probably pick up right then and there. Maybe a couple episodes into season 4, they'll finally pick up there. Who knows? They're probably going to do a giant time jump, I would be assuming. This seems to be it. Who knows what Bernard discovered in there? Who knows where it's going to take his character? I love that last final shot of him, and I think he's going to become a major part in season 4. And just diving into the last major part of this, of course, the Man in Black heads to Delos in Dubai, ends up killing one of the guards, going downstairs because he knows they're building something. He's all here. He's creating. I love Ed Harris. He thinks his purpose is to save the world. Heads down there, sees the Dolores version of Charlotte Hale, which we're just going to talk about Charlotte Hale now because that's who she is. And I like how she didn't fix herself on one of the arms. It really kind of sits like, I'm making this, I can fix myself, but I'm keeping this as a reminder. And of course, their little conversation right then and there, you see a host version of the Man in Black walk up behind her and totally kill the real William, which again, where does this go with season 2's end credit? I have zero idea on that. Still hope we finally get answers to that maybe later down the road, because that is a big ball drop. But this opens up the possibilities that the timelines, what's going on here? Is this in the same time period that, like, way down the road? Is this, like, right after the events of what happened after Caleb and Maeve kind of did their thing? Is this taking place during the same time as what happened with Bernard? I would assume it's probably taking place before Bernard, and then it time jumped to Bernard. Of course, Charlotte Hale does get this last thing, and it kind of falls into a room. The Man in Black actually kills the real William. Freaking great in there. That was a great whole thing. It makes me sad that version of William's dead, and now he's pretty much just a version of the Terminator, but we see that Charlotte Hale's building something. What is she building? I don't know. My theory on this is, I think some people are going to think she's building a bunch of other hosts, which, yeah, she's building a bunch of the hosts, but what version of them? I think it's a bunch of versions of William. I could be completely wrong in that. It could also be just different versions of different hosts that we've seen before in ways that we could see maybe Teddy come back, maybe not the actual Teddy, but in general, that version. We could see Hector. We could see versions of these, even though it's different pearls. and I think that's what's going to be interesting. But I'm sticking in the camp that I think she's building an army of Williams because he is the best version to kind of take out these. And while I think even Bernard knows that now Dolores is dead, and I think that kind of was the one thing when he's talking to Stubbs about it, I would like to think that I think Charlotte Hale's now going to be the main villain for next season, and I love how they set that up. And again, it kind of puts the forefront of Caleb and Maeve also having their own purpose to kind of go about, Bernard having his purpose and kind of discovering what that is, and of course Charlotte Hale building her army of either tons of Man in Blacks, tons of other hosts, whatever it might be. It's straight up becoming the Terminator, and it's going to be very interesting because who knows where that goes, because again, Caleb and Maeve feel like they have saved the world. Now the world just needs to recreate itself in their ideal range, but Charlotte has other possibilities. And again, it's just very interesting. Before I give you guys my final thoughts on the season, and in general, my whole not my ranking, but my grade for the season, make sure again to hit that like and subscribe. And if you enjoy TV reviews, movie reviews, geeky content, if you want to be a geek like me, hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss out on content like this on a daily basis, as well as comment down below. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this season. Did you guys love it? Did you hate it? Let me know your theories for season 4. What were your thoughts on this season finale? I'm so curious to hear your guys' thoughts. So overall, every time I watch Westworld, it always comes down to the finale, and I know not everyone loves this show. I know some people are kind of just still invested in it. I'm still in love with it. It still has me on board. Not the beginning of this episode, and I actually think this is my second favorite season, compared to either 1 or 2. I kind of need to rewatch those, but I think this is a great stepping up point because it kind of bridges the gap from season 2 kind of heading into season 4. It might seem like a setup season. It was kind of building up to what season 4 could possibly be, but I think that's what Westworld is, and it really played with the ideas of the ideology and the parallels between Westworld and our world and the AI, artificial intelligence. And again, very interesting stuff, and this is what I love about Westworld, is when I can theorize all about that. Again, I loved all the character progression in here. I love what they did with all the characters in here, pretty much, especially setting up for what could possibly be happening next season. Some things were a little bit clunky in the way that they kind of evolved, in the way that they kind of pinpointed, like how Dolores did this and how Caleb did this, but overall I'm won over by this season. I'm gonna have to give the season easily a B+, maybe an A-, kind of just on a rewatch. Maybe I think the B+ is because of how clunky some of it is and how some of the pacing. I like the fast pacing of it, but sometimes I think it needs to slow down and just take its time and marinate on a couple sort of decisions. This was still, it's more Westworld. I love Westworld. I think if you're into the season, this is exactly what you want. If you're not feeling it, it's definitely not what you want. I loved how it ended, and I'm so excited to see what they can do with season 4. I might not have loved the episode completely, especially the first half, but really it won me over by the ending. I'm so happy this episode was an hour and a half because it needed to be. So with all that said, again, guys, thank you guys again so much for watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed talking Westworld with me every single week. If you missed any of my episode reviews and want to know some thoughts, go check out the playlist up above. Look out for more content coming soon, and of course tomorrow is May the 4th. That's why I'm wearing my Kylo Ren shirt. So may the 4th be with you. May the Force be with you. May you guys stay geeky, and may you stay smart and safe out there all inside this world. So of course, until next time, stay classy.